in an age of lawlessness and despair. The empire of man lay in ruins, torn asunder by civil war, and racked by famine and plague. Desperate, unscrupulous men deserted the temples of their fathers and gathered in forbidden cults, seeking the favor of the dark gods. And so it was, in the year 2301, that a Kurgan warlord named Asavar Kul united the savage tribes of the Chaos Wastes and made war upon the realms of men. The invaders entered the distant northern kingdom of Kislev and sacked its largest city, Prague. They sacrificed its people to their dark gods, and any who managed to flee were driven into the freezing wilderness. The Empire seemed powerless to stop the Chaos Horde, and many feared that the end of the world was at hand. But in the Empire's darkest hour, a nobleman from the south named Magnus rallied the people of the Empire to resist the invaders, uniting the warring Elector Counts in the process. The Imperial Army marched to the rescue of the Kislevite capital, fighting Kul's army in a massive battle outside the city walls. Joined by mighty heroes from all across the land, Magnus defeated Kul in single combat, and the Chaos Horde was scattered to the winds. Blessed by the gods and heralded as the true Emperor, Magnus returned to Nuln in triumph. But even as the old world celebrated Magnus's victory, the dark gods were planning their revenge. Masters of the winds of magic, and none are more renowned than the High Princes of Safri. You were born to a life of great power and privilege, destined one day to take your place among the archmages at the Tower of Hoeth. The arts of magic came easily to you, but as your skill grew, so did your arrogance. A rivalry with another student at the tower spun out of control, culminating in a magical duel that left your rival dead and one of your teachers crippled. As punishment for your recklessness and disobedience, you were banished from Ulthuan until you had atoned for your crimes. Cast out with nothing but a few magical tomes and the clothes on your back, you journeyed to the old world in search of adventure. At first, the news of the Chaos invasion meant little to you. Your people had been fighting the Dark Gods and their armies for thousands of years. But then you learned that Teclis, Hoeth's greatest living archmage, had come to the old world to offer his support to Magnus and the Empire. Believing your moment of redemption was at hand, you rushed north to join the Imperial Army. Magnus accepted your offer at once, glad for another mage to battle Kul's sorcerers. As the day of battle dawned, you were determined to prove your worth or die in the attempt. While Teclis shielded Magnus from the enemy's spells, you fought Kul's sorcerers and demons with all the skill at your command. By the time the battle was over, you were a hero. Magnus offered you a place in his retinue, a position of tremendous power and influence. Such trifles meant nothing to you. All that mattered was the opinion of Teclis, who could end your bitter exile with just a few words. And so you have chosen to travel to Nuln with the Imperial Army, determined to win the favor of the High Lawmaster at any cost. If that meant protecting Magnus from his enemies and rebuilding the ravaged human empire, then that is what you will do. There was a time when an emperor ruled in Nuln, and the empire was at peace. But that was long before you were born. Soldiering is the only life you've ever known. Your father was a swordsman in service to the Elector Count of Reichland. By the time you were 15, he was dead, and his sword and armor passed to you. You've lost count of the number of battles you've fought. Some were victories, others defeats. Most were fought over the same barren hills and empty villages, year after year. You rose through the ranks, replacing men who'd fallen along the way. Then came the news of the Chaos invasion. Panicked Reichlanders spoke of the end of the world, and you feared they were right. With the Empire divided, who could stand against Kuhl and his horde? But then a nobleman from the old imperial capital of Nuln stepped into the breach. His name was Magnus, and he called upon the warring Elector Counts to stand as one and drive back the Chaos Horde. You expected no one to listen, but this time was different. Magnus's message spread like wildfire across the Empire. Within weeks, you and your company were on the march, joining the growing army as it headed north. Not even a lifetime of battles could prepare you for the nightmare that waited at Kislev. Just when all seemed lost, Magnus and his knights launched a desperate charge against the Chaos Warlord and his bodyguards. Surrounded, you and your men held back the Horde until Asavar Kuhl had fallen. It was the company's greatest victory, and its last. By the time the battle was over, you were the only one left. Once the dead were buried, you accepted Magnus's invitation to join his retinue and return with him to Nuln. After the horrors you witnessed at Kislev, defending the Empire from its foes is the only battle worth fighting anymore. It was an age of lawlessness and despair, a time of...
Sounds like trouble in the courtyard. I'd better take a look.
It was an age of lawlessness and despair, a time of dark magic, treachery, and war. It is a night made for witchery and evil deeds. And across the city, guardsmen clutch their weapons tightly and count the hours until the dawn. Sleep is hard to come by on a night such as this. The air is tense, and memories of the battle at Kislev leave you restless and on edge. Suddenly, a peal of thunder shatters the stillness, followed by a howling wind that shakes the tower to its foundations. Foul magic curdles the air, and screams echo in the courtyard outside. The tower is under attack.
There is sorcery in the air. I can feel it. I'd best get to the courtyard and see what's wrong.